Julia DeVore Tuttle was born on January 2nd, 1842, in Cleveland, Ohio. She died on September 14th, 1898, in Miami, Florida. Mrs. Tuttle was an early pioneer Miami developer, and she is often referred to as the Mother of Miami. She belonged to the Petticoat Regimen, which was basically a group of women that were highly influential in the establishment of towns up and down the East Coast. And without these women, who were also sometimes referred to as the Rainbow Makers, with their courage and imagination paving the way, they laid the foundation for the developers to build upon who might have been bogged down in their own swamps, quite literally, as most of southern Florida was, at the time, a swamp. Julia Tuttle was the impetus in selling Henry M. Flagler, the railroad tycoon and owner of the Florida East Coast Railway, on the idea of extending his line from Palm Beach to Miami, though at this time it still wasn't an established township. Mrs. Tuttle was relentless, really. She was a woman with a vision, and she knew that this was the only way to make it happen. But Flagler wouldn't cave until 1896. Without her persistence, though, it might have been years before the rails inched through the jungle and mangrove swamps. Mrs. Tuttle was a religious woman, and described by those who knew her as warm, generous, sincere, and giving. It was through her efforts that the first church in Miami was established. In 1893, the first Episcopal communion service was held in her parlor. She aided the bishop in teaching and caring for the Indians in the Everglades. Mrs. Tuttle made generous land gifts to the Episcopal Church to establish Trinity Church in Miami. The present Trinity Cathedral Church stems from this very first church. The cathedral houses a magnificent Ernest M. Skinner organ, considered to be one of the most notable instruments in this area. The concert series given at the cathedrals are said to be most inspiring. The cathedral rose window is a memorial to Julia Tuttle. And on Sunday, November 18, 1979, Trinity Cathedral, under the leadership of Dean George McCormick, Jr., celebrated Julia Tuttle Sunday with a beautiful service. When the male developers finally arrived, Julia and the other Petticoats were pushed aside. Areas around Mrs. Tuttle's land were developed. It was not until after her death that her land holdings were actually valued, though. Several years ago, the Miami Women's Club vigorously began a movement to name one of the major causeways between Miami and Miami Beach. They were successful, and we now have the Julia Tuttle Causeway. In addition to the Julia Tuttle Causeway, the memory of Mrs. Tuttle has been honored with a sculpture in Bayfront Park by Dobb and Furman. Another way that Mrs. Tuttle has been honored has been by the creation and implementation of her very own place on the International Honor Quilt. The piece representing Mrs. Tuttle was designed and created by Anna Cordelia Lockman Perkin. The design, embroidery, stitches, and application have been kept simple and basic. Instead of the traditional cotton batting for the quilt, a cotton mattress pad was used. The design was worked on one piece of mattress pad, cut out and tagged to the triangle pad to get relief effect, or as mock punto, which is an Italian method of quilting. The stitches are plain basting, with a variation of blanket stitch, buttonhole, chain, feather, satin, and cross stitches. The materials used include rayon satin, cotton, threads, embroidery floss, yarns of different ply to create texture, and the colors that were chosen are important in giving the feeling and imagery of Florida in particular, and also help to convey the feeling of Julia Tuttle's warm personality. Colors showing the tropical glow found in the land, sky, and water. Warm rose tands, rich greens, blues, and a dash of bright red. The symbol shapes, round, circular, elongated masses showing sun, tropical fruit shapes, mangoes, grapefruit, waving palms, and the water. The circle within the triangle represents the Holy Trinity, reflective of Julia Tuttle's own religion. The red color represents strength, as Julia Tuttle was undoubtedly a strong woman.